All right, everyone, get ready. Because today we're gonna really dig into this whole health insurance thing. Yeah, we're talking everything.
Hmm.
Providers, plans, all those regulations, it can get pretty wild out there. So consider this your crash course, your survival guide to making sense of it all. Our main source, the thing we're dissecting today, is 5 health insurance providers. It's jam-packed with all the essential info, ready to jump in.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So first off, I got to ask, can you explain the difference between those service providers
Hmm.
and those traditional indemnity plans? It's like one of those things that I always get a little confused about.
Yeah, no, it definitely can be confusing. Think of it this way. Imagine you go to the doctor. Now, with service providers, like, the big one, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they'll pay that doctor's bill directly right then and there.
Yeah.
But with indemnity plans, you got to pay up front. And then later on, you get reimbursed by the insurance company. It's kind of like using a credit card and then getting cash back. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So one is more direct payment, and the other is kind of like you handle it and then they sort it out later.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Is that part of the reason why Blue Cross Blue Shield is just everywhere? They seem to be the biggest name out there.
Yeah, you're right. They are huge. And it's actually kind of interesting. They're not like one massive company. It's more like a whole bunch of independent plans, all kind of operating under that same Blue Cross Blue Shield umbrella. It's a really unique structure. It gives them this giant reach across the country.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like a franchise, but for health insurance.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Huh. I never knew that. Okay, now another thing I hear a lot about is managed care. What exactly is that all about? Does it mean someone is literally managing my health care?
That's a really good question. Managed care it's more about how insurance companies try to keep those healthcare costs down and also influence, how people actually use their insurance benefits. One way they do this is through something called mandatory second opinions. So imagine you're told you need surgery, right?
Yeah.
With this approach, your insurance might say, hold on, go get a second opinion from a different doctor before we approve this procedure.
Ah, okay. So it's like a check and balance to
Yeah.
make sure it's really necessary.
Exactly.
And that could save someone a lot of trouble down the line and money too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And think about it, if it turns out you didn't actually need that surgery, you've just avoided a whole bunch of potential risks and costs.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Another method they use is pre-certification review. This happens before you're even admitted to the hospital. Basically, a specialist reviews your case just to make sure the planned treatment is really necessary.
So it's kind of like a filter to make sure those resources are being used appropriately.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so what are some other strategies they use?
Well, there's also been a big rise in these ambulatory surgery centers. You know how a lot of procedures used to require you to stay overnight in a hospital?
Right, yeah.
Well, now a lot of surgeries can be done as outpatient procedures in
Yeah.
these specialized centers, and it's often at a much lower cost.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like going to urgent care instead of the ER.
Exactly. Yeah, good analogy. And then finally, there's case management. This is where a specialist, often a nurse, helps to coordinate your care and explore all the different options that are available. There's kind of your advocate, making sure you get the right treatment, but also looking for ways to keep the costs down.
Wow. Okay, so it's a lot more than just limiting care. It's also about making sure it's the right care. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's talk about those different types of plans we see out there. I always hear people debating HMOs versus PPOs. Can you break those down for us?
Absolutely. Let's start with HMOs. Those are health maintenance organizations. They operate on a prepaid model.
Mm-hmm.
So you pay a fixed fee every month, and in return, you get access to a pretty comprehensive range of services.
Okay.
Think of it like a subscription service for your healthcare.
Oh, okay. Like
Right.
Netflix, but for doctor's visits and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean you only pay that monthly fee and that's it? No other costs?
Well, there might be some co-pays for certain services.
Yeah.
But the general idea is that most of your healthcare needs are covered under that monthly fee. And here's another interesting thing about HMOs. They have these things called open enrollment periods. They're set times throughout the year when you can join or switch plans.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, it gives you some flexibility to change things up if you need to.
Right, okay. But I've also heard that HMOs can be a bit restrictive. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, that's one of the trade-offs. HMOs often have this thing called a gatekeeper system. So
Yeah.
basically, you have to choose a primary care physician, your PCP, and they coordinate all of your care.
Hmm.
So if you need to see a specialist, you usually got to get a referral from your PCP first.
Ah, okay. So it's like having a designated point person for all your healthcare decisions.
Yes,
Some
exactly.
people might like that, but others might feel like it's kind of an extra step.
Right, and it really depends on your individual preferences
Hmm.
and also, your healthcare needs. Some people find it like really reassuring to have a doctor kind of guiding their care and making sure they're seeing the right specialists. But others might prefer to have like more freedom to choose their own doctors.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Okay, so that brings us to PPOs, those preferred provider organizations. What makes this different?
So PPOs are more about financing healthcare rather than like directly delivering it. They negotiate these discounted rates with a network of providers. You could see any doctor within that network. And the PPO will cover a portion of the cost through coinsurance.
Coinsurance. So is that different from a copay?
It is, yeah. A copay is like a fixed dollar amount you pay for a specific service, like, $20 for a doctor's visit or something. Coinsurance, on the other hand, is a percentage of the total cost, like let's say 20% of the bill for a surgery.
Okay, got it, got it. So with the PPO, you have more freedom to choose your doctors, but you might end up paying more out of pocket depending on that coinsurance.
Exactly, yeah. You get more flexibility, but you might have more financial responsibility. And another thing with PPOs, you can actually see doctors outside of the network, but your coverage is going to be a lot lower.
Ah, okay. So it's like venturing off the beaten path, you know? You can
Okay.
do it, but it might cost you.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that there's no like one right answer when it comes to choosing between an HMO and a PPO.
Exactly, yeah. It really depends on, your individual circumstances, your healthcare needs, your budget, and how much flexibility you want in choosing your doctors.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now, before we move on, can you tell me a little bit more about those different HMO structures? You mentioned something about like closed panel versus open panel HMOs.
Oh yeah, of course. Think of closed panel HMOs like a self-contained healthcare system. The doctors are actually employees of the HMO, and they typically practice in HMO-owned facilities.
Oh, okay. So it's like a one-stop shop for healthcare, all under one roof.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, open panel HMOs, on the other hand, they contract with independent physicians who have their own private practices. So you might see a doctor in their own office, but they're still part of the HMO's network.
Okay, okay. So closed panel is more like integrated and open panel is more like a network of independent providers.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. And within those two main types, there are even more like specific HMO models.
Yeah.
For example, there's the staff model, which is a type of closed panel HMO. The doctors are like salaried employees of the HMO. Then there's the group model, also closed panel, where the HMO contracts with an entire group of physicians to provide care to its members.
Oh, I see. So it's
Oh,
like the HMO is building its own team of doctors versus
sure.
partnering with existing groups.
Exactly. Then the network model takes it a step further,
Hmm.
involving like multiple physician groups, forming a broader network. And finally, there's the IPA model, short for Individual or Independent Practice Association. This is an open panel model where independent physicians form their own association and then contract with the HMO as a group.
Wow, so many different ways to structure an HMO.
I know, right?
It's like choosing your own adventure, but for healthcare.
Exactly.
So the key takeaway here is that HMOs come in all sorts of like different flavors.
Yeah, they offer different levels of like integration and choice and control.
Okay, so we've got HMOs covered. What's next on our health insurance adventure?
Well, we've talked about HMOs, but there are other managed care options out there,
Hmm.
like POS plans and EPOs. Those kind of try to blend the best of both worlds.
Oh, right, right. Those acronyms always get me. POS, EPO. Can
Yeah.
we break those down a little bit? What's a POS plan all about?
Sure. So a POS plan or point of service plan is kind of like a hybrid between an HMO and a PPO.
Hmm.
You still have a primary care physician coordinating your care,
Hmm.
like in an HMO.
Hmm.
But you have the option to see out-of-network providers if you're, willing to pay a bit more, kind of like with a PPO.
Okay, so it's like you have your home base, but you can like explore other options if you need to. That could be good for someone who wants a little structure but doesn't want to be totally locked into a network. What about those EPOs?
Yeah, EPOs, those are exclusive provider organizations. And they're even more exclusive, like the name suggests. You usually don't have any coverage for out-of-network care, except for emergencies, of course.
Yeah.
But like PPOs, you don't usually need referrals to see specialists within the network.
Got it. Got it. So with an EPO, you're kind of trading that broader coverage for the convenience of seeing specialists directly.
Exactly.
Man, it sounds like there's like a lot of little things to think about when you're choosing a plan.
Yeah, there definitely is. It's really important to weigh your priorities, like cost, flexibility, access to specific doctors. And let's not forget about group insurance. That's how a lot of people, get their coverage, especially through work.
Right, right. Group insurance. That's a whole other beast, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. The important thing to remember is that group insurance isn't like a specific type of provider like Blue Cross Blue Shield or something. It's more of a category of insurance. It just
Sure.
means that the plan is offered to a group of people, usually through, an employer or an association or some kind of organization.
Okay. Okay. So it's like buying in bulk, you get a better deal because you're part of a larger group. Is that why those employer-sponsored plans are usually more affordable?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get more comprehensive coverage too, but there's a catch. To qualify as a natural group, the group has to exist for reasons other than just getting insurance.
Oh, interesting. So like a company offering insurance to its employees, that makes sense. But a bunch of random people forming a group just to get cheaper insurance, that wouldn't fly.
Nope, not at all. There are rules in place to prevent that kind of thing. Now, within group insurance, there are a few different ways these plans can be structured. For example, smaller companies might band together to form what's called a multiple employer trust, or MET. That lets them kind of pool their resources and get better rates.
Oh, that's smart. Teamwork for better insurance options.
Exactly.
Now, what about companies that go the self-insured route? Does that mean they're like taking on all the risk themselves?
Not necessarily, no.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of self-insured employers will buy what's called stop-loss insurance. Think of it kind of like a safety net. It kicks in if their healthcare costs go above a certain limit.
Yeah.
So it protects them from like those catastrophic losses.
Ah, so they're self-insured up to a point, but they have a backup plan in case things get,
Yeah.
really expensive.
Right, exactly. And a lot of self-insured employers also use ASO contracts. That stands for Administration Services Only. It basically means they're outsourcing all the the administrative stuff, the paperwork, the
Yeah.
claims processing. They hand all that off to an insurance company or a third-party administrator.
Ah, okay. So they're managing the financial risk themselves, but they're letting someone else handle all the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, I know there are a ton of like regulations around group insurance, especially for small businesses. What are some of the key things that small business owners need to be aware of?
Oh, man. There's a lot to navigate. But some important points are that small group plans, they have to offer coverage to all eligible employees, regardless of their health status. They can't just pick and choose the healthy employees and exclude the ones with, pre-existing conditions.
Right, right. That's super important for protecting people's access to healthcare. It wouldn't be fair if businesses could just, deny coverage to people who need it most.
Exactly. And to provide some stability, insurers are usually required to renew coverage for small groups, unless there's a valid reason not to, like,
Yeah.
non-payment of premiums or some kind of fraudulent activity.
Right. Okay. So no arbitrary cancellations.
Exactly.
That gives businesses a little bit of peace of mind.
It does. And small group plans also have to offer a basic set of essential benefits. So that ensures like a minimum level of coverage for everyone. Insurers are allowed to adjust rates annually based on things like the group's demographics and claims history.
Okay, so the costs can change, but they can't discriminate against a group based on health status.
Right.
What about options? Do small businesses have any choice in the types of plans they offer?
They do, yeah. Insurance carriers have to offer at least 2 different plans to small employers, usually like a basic plan and a standard plan. So businesses can choose the level of coverage that, best fits their needs and budget.
Yeah. Okay, so there's some flexibility there. This is a lot to take in. It's amazing how much goes into providing health insurance. Now, what happens when someone leaves their job or their group plan terminates? Are they just stranded without any coverage?
No, no, not at all. There are some safety nets in place, like what's called an extension of benefits. This kicks in after someone leaves the group plan, and it covers active claims like,
Oh.
ongoing treatment for a pre-existing condition. It's designed to provide like continuity of care during those transitions.
Oh, okay. So it helps to bridge the gap and make sure people don't have to like abruptly stop treatment.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good. But what about new claims? Does it cover those too?
Not quite. Extension of benefits is usually pretty limited in
Really?
in how long it lasts, and it only covers claims that were already active before the person left the group plan. It's more about wrapping up like existing treatments.
Okay, so it's a temporary thing to help people through a transition. But what about longer term solutions? I've heard of Cobra, but I'm not really sure how it works.
Yeah, so COBRA stands for the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. It's a federal law that requires employers with 20 or more employees to offer continuation of coverage after a qualifying event. Think of it kind of like a lifeboat for your health insurance.
A lifeboat. I like that. Okay, so what are some of those qualifying events that would trigger a Cobra?
Sure, so qualifying events include things like losing your job, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, the death of the insured employee, divorce, a dependent child aging out of the plan,
Right.
or the insured employee becoming eligible for Social Security disability benefits.
Wow. Okay. So it covers a lot of those like major life changes that could really disrupt someone's health insurance coverage. So what happens when one of those events happens? Like how does the whole COBRA process work?
Well, first, the employer has to notify the employee or their dependents about their COBRA rights within 14 days of the qualifying event. Then, the employee or their dependents have 60 days to decide if they want to elect COBRA coverage.
Oh, okay. So there's like a window of opportunity to make that decision. But if they do choose COBRA, they have to pay the full cost of the premium, right?
That's right, yeah. They're essentially taking on the cost that the employer was previously contributing. Plus, there might be a small administrative fee tacked on. But the good thing is that they can continue with the same plan they had before, so there's no need to, like, shop for new coverage during what might be a pretty stressful time.
Right. Yeah. That continuity can be so important,
It is.
especially if you're, dealing with a health issue or going through a major life change. So how long does COBRA coverage usually last?
Well, the duration depends on what the qualifying event was. For job loss, it's usually 18 months.
Hmm.
But for things like death of the insured employee, divorce, or a child aging out, it can last up to 36 months.
Okay. Okay. So it's kind of like tailored to the situation. And what happens at the end of that COBRA period? Are people just like cut off completely?
No, they usually have the option to convert their group coverage to an individual policy. Might not be the exact same plan, and the premiums might be different, but it gives them a way to maintain continuous coverage.
Oh, that's good. It seems like there are a lot of like options available to help people navigate those tricky transitions.
Yeah.
Speaking of navigating tricky things, I know the world of health insurance is like heavily regulated and rightfully so. I mean, can we talk about some of those key laws that have like shaped this whole landscape?
Absolutely, yeah. There's some landmark pieces of legislation out there that have like made a huge difference in people's lives. One of the most important ones is H-by-A, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
EPA. Yeah, that's another one I've heard a lot about. What exactly does it do?
So HIPAA, which was passed back in 1996, it was a game changer for people with pre-existing conditions. Before HIPAA, if you had a health condition and you switched jobs, insurers could deny you coverage or charge you these like crazy high premiums.
Wow, that's awful. So HIPAA put a stop to that.
Yeah, it did. HIPAA prevents insurers from using pre-existing conditions
Right.
as a reason to deny coverage or charge higher rates, as long as you've had continuous coverage.
Yeah.
It also sets standards for protecting the privacy of your health information, which is why we all get those privacy notices from our doctors and hospitals these days.
Right, right. So it's about fairness and privacy too.
Exactly.
That's huge. Are there any other key laws that have like really impacted health insurance?
Definitely. Another big one is the Pregnancy Discrimination Act.
Mm.
This law makes sure that pregnancy, childbirth, and related conditions are treated just like any other health condition when it comes to insurance coverage.
Oh wow. Okay, that's a crucial step towards like gender equality in healthcare. So before this act, women were actually discriminated against when it came to pregnancy and health insurance.
Unfortunately, yeah. It used to be pretty common for insurers to exclude pregnancy coverage.
Mhm.
or to charge women higher premiums. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act put an end to those discriminatory practices.
Yeah.
It also requires employers to treat pregnancy as a disability if it interferes with a woman's ability to work. So that ensures that she receives the same protections as other disabled employees.
Wow, that's really important. It's amazing how much progress has been made in ensuring like fairness and protecting people's rights when it comes to health insurance. But
Hmm.
I gotta admit, all this talk about regulations and laws is it's making my head spin a little bit.
I know it's definitely complex, but it's all designed to protect consumers
Yeah.
and to make sure there's a level playing field in the health insurance market.
Right, right. I get that. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into group insurance? What are some of the key takeaways you want people to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is that group insurance it offers a lot of advantages,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to like costs and coverage.
Right.
But it's also really important to understand those rules and regulations.
Yeah.
The ones that govern these plans, especially if you're like a small business owner.
Right. Yeah. It definitely pays to be informed. Now, I've been thinking about this and kind of taking a step back from all these details for a second. But it seems like with health insurance, we often focus so much on treating illness rather than like preventing it in the first place. What if we could change that? What if we could create a system that really prioritizes well-being?
Hmm. That's a really interesting thought. It would require like a pretty fundamental shift
Hmm.
in how we view healthcare, wouldn't it?
Right. Instead of just like reacting to illness, we'd be proactively investing in health and well-being.
Exactly.
Imagine a system that not only like covers doctor's visits and medications, but also like encourages healthy habits, supports mental and emotional wellness, and even like helps to build a sense of community and connection. It would be less about, fixing what's broken and more about nurturing what's strong.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really compelling vision.
Right.
It would definitely require a shift in mindset from both, individuals and the healthcare system as a whole.
Mm.
We'd have to start viewing health as like a shared responsibility,
Yeah.
a collaborative effort between, individuals, healthcare providers, and the community.
Yeah, and imagine the potential benefits. We could see like a decrease in those chronic diseases,
Mm.
improved mental health outcomes, maybe even like greater social cohesion. It's pretty exciting to think about.
It is. It is. It really challenges us to reimagine what healthcare could be. It might sound a little idealistic, but I think it's a conversation worth having.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. Well, this has been incredible. We've explored so much today, like
Yeah.
the whole intricate world of health insurance,
Yeah.
from service providers and managed care to group plans, COBRA, HIPAA, even the future of well-being.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, but I hope you feel empowered now to navigate this complex landscape and to make informed decisions about your healthcare.
I know I do, and I think our listeners will too. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been really great.
My pleasure. It's been great to be here. And remember, everyone, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to health insurance. The more you understand, the better equipped you'll be to advocate for yourself and to make choices that really align with your values and needs.
Couldn't have said it better myself. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and engaging. And remember, keep diving deep and stay curious.